Good morning. And welcome. Welcome to the Climate Justice Revival at Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. My name is Mark Richards. I am your worship leader today, and we are really grateful for you to be here. As part of our tradition, if you are new here, if you are visiting for the first time, or if you haven't been here for a while, we invite you to stand, introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from, and what brings you here. So if you're willing to do that, please do so.
It's my great pleasure to introduce my sister Linda Kerr from Roseville.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Mike.
I'm Amy.
And we're visiting from Columbus. Just enjoying the
Columbus, Ohio. Welcome. Thank you. All right.
I'm Cynthia LaFonte, and my husband Tom and I live in Bailey's Harbor, and it's our first time here, so thank you for having us.
Oh, well, thanks for coming. Okay. So we are a welcoming congregation. We invite everybody and all into our fellowship, and we pray, and we are not concerned about who you love, what you believe, and all those other things that don't come to mind right now. But we welcome you here, and we are happy that you are here. Today we are celebrating the UU Climate Justice Revival. We started yesterday. We had a workshop with about 10 people. We did some really interesting, imaginative, creative work, and some of it's up here for you to take a look at. Our whole intention is to build a new world with a different way of living, a different way of seeing each other. And we were grateful for that, and hopefully this service is going to continue in that mode today. We welcome our guest speaker, Jeff Lutze, from all kinds of environmental work that's being done here in Door County, and we're grateful for his presence here today and all the good work that he's been doing. Welcome. Opening word. So I'm just going to say that throughout religious history, revivals have marked periods of resurgence in people's commitment to their faith traditions. Classic American tent revivals took people out of the four walls of the church and out into the world, and they brought the community together and served as a galvanizing force for the future, often during times of change or anxiety. That wouldn't describe now, would it? In the midst of overlapping climate crises and mounting social injustice, We are in a time of great change and profound anxiety. Taking a note from those who have gone before us, the climate justice revival is a time to come together and recommit. We have a time for announcements. There are some announcements on the back of your order of service. If anyone else has an announcement, Terry will bring you the mic.
Good morning, Bruce Nelson. In the mode of the climate and such today, the announcement is for the last 4 months, May, June, July, and August, our solar panels have produced more electricity than what we have used. And the excess, of course, is sold into the grid, and everybody else can use our solar power.
Cool.
Just like to reiterate that the Dickinson series is Wednesday night, and Catherine Jago will be speaking here. She's a wonderful poet and writer, and I urge everybody to come and bring all your friends. 7 o'clock, Wednesday.
Hi, I'm Jamie Hanreddy, a member of this fellowship and also a member of the caring committee. And I would like to remind everyone that all 4 Sundays in October, we will be womaning the table in the foyer
That's good.
to help you all fill out or refresh your emergency contact sheets. Only 30% of friends and members of the congregation have done this.
Okay.
And we've been trying to push this for years now. So we're going to, I'm going to come knocking on your door if you don't fill it out this time. And I'm not speaking from a place of superiority because I haven't done mine either. So we are really making a big push here in October. So think about this. What local person, member of the fellowship, friend, local friend, should be your immediate contact that knows you've got a dog or a cat at home if something happens, or where the secrets are hidden in the closet, whatever. And who's got your power of attorney, who's your family contact that you want us to call, just in case we are notified first here at UU. So it's a really good thing. Please think about it. Come with notes on a piece of paper so you can fill it out here. Okay?
Good morning, everyone. David Sherman. I'm going to be giving a performance today at 5 o'clock at the Shoreline Restaurant back there behind it. It's free, BYOB, bring a chair. Basically for sunset, 5 to a little after 6:30.
Cool. Great. Thank you.
I'm a vocal and guitar, so singer-songwriter kind of stuff.
Hello. I didn't know if this was an announcement or a joy, so I'll do it early. As you might know, Ken and I are celebrating our 85th birthdays this fall. Mine is already passed and his is at the end of October. And in honor of this, we are sponsoring the Midsummer Music Concert next Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock at the Crest by the Pro Artie Quartet. And we invite you all to buy a ticket and come and join us in our celebration. They will be playing quartets by Haydn and Schubert, and then to stick around afterward and have some birthday cake with us. So we'll remind you again next Sunday too, but a week from today at 3 o'clock at the Crest. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for all that. Our chalice lighting words come from Ralph Waldo Emerson. Our age is retrospective. It builds the sepulchres of the fathers. It writes biographies, histories, and criticism. And foregoing generations beheld God and nature face to face, we through their eyes. Why should not we also enjoy an original relation to the universe? Why should not we have a poetry and philosophy of insight and not of tradition? and a religion by revelation to us and not the history of theirs. Embosomed for a season in nature whose floods of life stream through and around us and invite us by the powers they supply to action proportioned to nature, why should we grope through the dry bones of the past or put the living generation into masquerade out of its faded wardrobe? The sun shines today also. There is more wool and flax in the fields. There are new lands, new people, new thoughts. Let us demand our own works and laws and worship. Our opening hymn is number 361, Enter, Rejoice, and Come In. After the hymn, please remain standing for the unison affirmation and the doxology. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your ears to the song. Open your ears to the song. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Open your hearts, everyone. Open your hearts, everyone. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Don't be afraid of some change. Don't be afraid of some change. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Enter, rejoice, and come in. Today will be a joyful day. Enter, rejoice, and come in. The unison affirmation is printed in your order of service. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill, honor be sung in every land, by every tongue. We come to the time in our service to express joy for the blessings of our lives, to express concerns for those things that weigh heavy on us, knowing that together our joy can be greater and our sorrows can be lighter. Terry will bring you the mic.
Unfortunately, my name is Helene. And I'm asking you all to send good thoughts to my brother, who's 87, and his wife, who were stranded on top of the mountain in North Carolina. No, his daughter has not heard from him since Thursday, at which time he said the basement was flooding and there were trees down everywhere and no one could reach them. and he has no cell phone service at this time. But she and her husband are trying to drive up from Raleigh to see if they can get through to them at all, and bringing fuel and food, etc.
Okay. So our offertory today, the music for our offertory will be up here on the screen. This is a song called Part of It. It was commissioned by the UUA for this particular climate justice revival. And the ushers will wait on you.
There's an eternal sacred circle. We are part of it. There's an eternal sacred circle. We are part of it. We are only part of it. There's the divine and loving wisdom. We're a spark. We're a spark of it. There's the divine and loving wisdom. We're a spark of it. We are only part of it. We are a part. We are part of it. We are a spark. We're a spark of it. We are a part. We are part of it. We are a spark. We're a spark of it. Here as one voice we choose survival, and we start to make an art of it. Now is our moment for revival. We're at the heart of it, and we are only part of it. We are only part of it. We are a part. We are part of it. We're at the heart. We're at the heart of it. We are a part. We're a part of it. We're at the heart. We're at the heart of it. We are only part of it. We are only part of it.
And now let us center into a time of meditation and reflect on where we stand in as part of this place, where we are part of this county, where we are part of this world. Our reading this morning comes from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5. Now, when Jesus saw the crowds, he went up on a mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him, and he began to teach them. He said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. And blessed are you when people insult you and persecute you and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven, for in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you."
Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Lutzy. I am honored and privileged to be here with you. Thank you very much for inviting me to come speak with the fellowship and to speak with you all. I'm happy and grateful that I know a handful of people in this room, but I'm also really excited to see a lot of people that I don't know and have a really good discussion both now and afterwards. Great. Show of hands, how many people know what this building is? Okay. For those that don't, this very unusual building is the Unity Temple in Oak Park. My first service at a Unitarian Universalist church was here at this Unity Temple. Went to school in Chicago, and I fell in love with Frank Lloyd Wright at a very early age, as both for the art and the architecture and the engineering. I ended up going into engineering school. But I love this building, and I loved visiting a whole bunch of Frank Lloyd Wright buildings in the Oak Park area and in Chicago. And as unusual as that the outside of that building is, it's really all about the inside. What a beautiful feeling to be in that temple. The horizontal lines, simultaneously you get this awesome feeling of grounding and being part of the earth, but also you have all these great vertical lines and this natural light that Frank Lloyd Wright really put a good amount of his artistic genius into. So to be in that warm environment really was a beautiful space, and that was my first introduction to the UU philosophy and principles, kindness and compassion and tolerance. So really cool. It's really great to be here speaking with you right now. My role is the director of the Climate Change Coalition. I'm honored to do a lot of environmental work in the county, and as mentioned, to work with and volunteer and connect with a lot of people in this room on some of these actions and education mission that we have. I guess a little bit of background. The reason I got into this work, it was inspired by two things. One, was a moment where I was walking in the woods with a couple of friends at the Ridges, specifically Katie Krause and a couple others on a tour with Jane Whitney. And, as you do when you're walking around the woods in Door County, you're admiring certain, species of forests and looking at the pine needles and listening to the birds and identifying and being curious, and enjoying all these trees. Katie mentioned to me at some point, she said, as we were admiring this birch tree, she said, "Jeff, the birch trees aren't going to make it." And I said, "What?" And this was 8 years ago or so. And we talked a little bit more, and I did a lot more research. And basically the projections show that birches are a little bit more vulnerable than most of the other tree species. And it with a 2 or 3 degree increase in temperature due to the summer increased temperature as well as the winter increased temperature, the birches will have a really hard time making it. And that really struck me in a couple of ways. One, because I thought back to the birch trees I had when I was growing up in my home in Green Bay and throughout my childhood. But what really struck me is that there's a species, any species, and you learn later it's a lot of species, but that there's a species that isn't going to make it, and it's in our lifetime. And so up to that moment, climate and climate changing was kind of abstract, and it was a big deal, but it was later, and it was a big deal, but it was too big. But that was a real slap in the face to me to say, this is a big deal right now, and the people in this room and the people in our county, like, we're going to see change, even though it's really slow and we'll barely see it. The other inspiration that got me into this work that I'm grateful for is volunteer tree planting. And I planted trees with a lot of people in this room. And it really started with who I call the volunteer tree planters of the county. I think a lot of people know Bob Boltman, but Katie and Chris Olson and Christina Studebaker, they invited me to a volunteer tree planting at Mud Lake and Bailey's Harbor. And I said, "Oh yeah, I'll come plant trees." And I just fell in love with the simple physical act of planting this little tree. And so I loved it for the physical act and what it was doing, but really because of the metaphor and the symbolism and how this little act that we can do cumulatively with everyone is such an important act, and it's really fun to do it with your friends. A little bit of background on climate change. What is it? I think we kind of know this, but this graph speaks to me as just something really simple. Carbon dioxide levels over the last 2,000 years have just slowly gone up and down. That's the black line at this 320 parts per million. But something around 1850s made that carbon dioxide black line go up really dramatically, really unnaturally. And then the colored lines, the blue is temperature at every single year being below blue or above red by only a quarter or a half or a whole degree. And so when that carbon dioxide level rose really precipitously from 1850 on, the temperature happened to rise in a kind of a wild, dramatic way. And that, to me, to put it into perspective, that was just kind of a wild realization as a geeky science engineer guy to be like, that is really unusual. That was eye-opening to me. It's still kind of too big and too abstract to kind of realize because that happens in such a slow way, even though that doesn't look slow at all because it's on 2,000-year frame. But let's look at what happens when it's a little bit closer in time. So this is just what 1 year of temperature looks like. And all those squiggly lines on the bottom are about 70 and 60 years ago, that generally it's colder in the winter. And every day they average all the temperatures of the earth. So it's ziggling up and down. But all the lines on the bottom are 70 and 60 years ago. But the red line, the squiggly line on the top, is the temperature over the first 6 months of 2023. And the trend that we see is that temperature that we of course are normally cold in the winter and warm in the summer. But in the last couple of years, every single new curve is a little bit higher and a little bit higher, even though sometimes it's a little lower and higher on a certain day or a certain part of the earth. If you average out the whole earth, generally we're kind of weirdly high. And how much higher? That's only a couple of degrees swing. The whole height of any 1 month on there is only 2 degrees, but we're roughly 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than we are on average on the earth. So this kind of brings up a couple of problems, and most of these are psychological, moral problems, and these are all things that I'm sure some of you have had these exact same thoughts, and you might still have all these thoughts. We're too small. This problem is way too big. What does one person out of 8 billion even matter? We know individually we are not personally to blame because we're only 0.0000001% of this problem. And that's just right now. What about all the people before us that were all part of burning a little bit of fuel that gave a little bit more carbon dioxide out there? So we kind of know that we're partly to blame, that wee little bit, but it's hard to really take that to heart. That's not how we think about morality. We think about morality as killing somebody or hurting somebody very directly. So because we know we're partly to blame, but it's so small, you feel the guilt and you feel the shame, but it's so small that it's easier to kind of bury it than to really take that on. It's not the same kind of shame and guilt you feel when you say the wrong thing to your friend or you do something wrong and you take it to heart and you apologize. Another problem that kind of is going against us psychologically is it's just happening way too slow. So from those plots, like, what does it matter if we're living here in Door County and temperature goes up 1.5 degrees? It literally doesn't. Like, we actually probably get some benefits. We get a couple of more beautiful beach days in September, like we're having right now. So that's been great, right? And so the psychological problem with that is we don't experience these problems. We just get to run the air conditioner a little bit more, and we really know we're still not a significant part of that problem. And then also, we know we physically won't suffer because we're the lucky ones in Door County. And really, that, as we know, over the next 20 years and even 40 years, maybe we won't experience any of the problems that we are predicted. Right now, the awfulness that happens when hurricanes come through, hurricanes are just a little bit more frequent and a little bit more aggressive. And that it's hard to say, oh, it's my bad. I shouldn't have driven around in my SUV. So that's a lot to fight. That's a lot to overcome. Where do we go from here? And so that's a lot to go against us. And that's some of the worst things against us. It's psychology. It's not kind of the stuff you see. It's the stuff that's inside of you that make you say, hey, I've lived my life. I know I've done well. I was taught well by my mom and dad and my community, and I'm really doing all that I can. And so if you live in this world where you're just hurting people a little bit and you're hurting yourself in the world a little bit, it's hard to take action. But what do we have going for us? And I really think we're at an important, awesome time of optimism for a couple of reasons. The most important thing is there's a lot of us that have our own little climate story where someone told us, oh man, the birches are in trouble, or it might be a natural disaster, or it might be something you hear in kind of a more difficult region where the water level rose and people weren't able to adapt to that. So everybody has that moment. The best thing we have going for us right now is the tide has finally turned to the fact of generally we are aware. Generally, 10 years ago, if you asked a couple of questions, is climate change happening? Did we do it? Are we doing it? And can we do anything about it? All of those answers were 40% and below. But the amazing point we're at right now, because we're seeing it for the first time and finally we're witnessing a little bit, is when we ask the question, is climate change happening? That now the average across the entire country, and it's of course different in different areas, is climate change happening? The answer is yes, and the answer is at 72%. People know it is happening. They see it, they witness it, they feel it. All this data comes from Yale, the Yale Program for Climate Change Communications. Great resource. The second obvious kind of big question is, hey, are we causing climate change? This number is not as positive in the 70s, it's 58%. But to me, that's very heartening. The majority of people now reading science, seen with their own eyes and their own feelings, they know that they are part of the cause of this problem. And that's important because we have to work together. Okay, this last one blew my mind. The survey question of, should we transition to renewable energy? And so regardless of if your belief is, yes, climate change is real, yes, we're the cause for it, way more than those people, those 50 and 60%, think we should actually go do something about it. So that means there's people on the fence that are like, maybe it's happening, maybe it's not. But you want to know it is good? Solar power. You want to know it is good? Us taking collective action. And that's because coal isn't just about a climate problem. There's also other health decrements that happen because of air quality and water quality and other things. So that to me is very heartening that the vast majority of people think it's the right thing to do to really change the way that we power ourselves and all the conveniences of our lives through electricity. So the biggest opportunity and the biggest excitement that I have is really that we are aware collectively, we as a people are aware. Another big opportunity that I see right now is we know what to do. One of my favorite nonprofits is Project Drawdown, that has a whole bunch of PhD scientists, and from all of their studies, they said, hey, what's the best bang for our buck? If we're going to put some time and resources and we have $10, $100, $1 million, or $1 billion, what's the best use of those resources? And let's prioritize what has the greatest carbon reduction by dollar amount, and both by individual as well as by society if we're making bigger decisions at a government level. And what's awesome is we're at a way better spot than we were. We have better science and technology is improving. And so now we have the answers on what to do. We know that composting and reducing food waste is a significant part of it. And we know how to do it. We know conservation of land and either maintaining the forests that are out there or working on reforesting lands that have been degraded is part of that answer. We know that the foods we eat matter, that every single piece of food that we take in and add sustenance comes from some upsourcing, some kind of upward source of all the food and all the farming and all the transportation that went into that. And so we know what the answer is, and it's just making slight changes in our habits whenever we can, wherever we can. We know cleaner transportation is part of the solution. Who would have guessed 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, that electric vehicles would have come on the scene and picked up in such a dramatic way so quickly? I wouldn't have guessed we had that opportunity to not just, it does seem slow when you're an environmentalist, but when you look at the framework of decades over time, that's a really fast transition to be able to go to 20% electric vehicles the way we have. We know solar is one of the answers, along with the other renewables. And solar, Door County, in a lot of ways, I get to work with a handful of people and talk with a lot of people. Big kudos to you in the fellowship for taking a leadership role and saying, hey, we can be part of our solution. And every single electron made from that solar panel is a reduction of coal and a reduction of carbon dioxide that's made, from the other part of the state. And of course, we have to do that individually, but we really need to change the whole grid. Wisconsin's grid is unusually bad for fossil fuels. 72% of our grid comes from coal and natural gas. Compare that to any other state in our vicinity or the whole country, and we compare pretty poorly. And so we know the answer is changing to utility scale, larger solar, and we're going to keep working towards that. And then a little bit closer to home, tons of solutions that we didn't have 10 years ago due to technology and also due to federal tax credits and benefits. And that's energy audits. You can get a reduction in the price you pay for an energy audit. You get a $150 reduction. And that's just do an assessment on your home and see what's the next low-hanging fruit that you got to fix. It's probably your appliances when you change them out, but it might be your whole HVAC system, switching over to a heat pump or a mini split. or it might be changing out your windows to 3-pane rather than 2-pane, depending on what you have. So we have the answer. We know what to do now. And some might say, oh, we don't know how to make transitions like that. And what's really cool is we do. In our lifetime, there's been 5, and this is just 5 of 10 very large kind of technology advance that everybody got excited about. And so, every single one of these chlorofluorocarbons in our refrigerators, and this is something I learned about when I was a kid, and we had to quickly, it was a great boon and a help because everybody got cheaper, more effective refrigeration. But then we realized kind of fast that the little bit of chlorofluorocarbons and the byproduct that leaks out into space kills the ozone. And amazingly, great technology, realize that it's got a negative effect that we didn't really know about, make a change. And each one of these is the same. PCBs, great machinery benefit, awesome lubricant, game changer for a whole bunch of hard machinery. But we realize it's got a really bad negative downward effect on water and water quality. So we had to make a change. Car emissions. Our cars used to be way dirtier with nitrous and sulfurous oxides. And nobody thought, and we knew that, and it came from scientists to say, hey, what's coming out of every single one of our cars is really bad. We really need a catalytic converter. And now it's something we just take for granted because it's mandatory and it's in all cars. But that was something that we realized something is bad that we didn't really know was bad. Science kind of had to gear up and woman up and man up to be able to figure out what those were. And then we had to take action on it, and it was mandatory. And you just got to change industry by science and making the right decision. Same as coal. Coal is a really good story right now, even though we don't think it is. Just in the 1990s, we were at 57% coal as the power source for our country, and now we're at 20. And so coal is the bad guy. We know it. It's bad for safety for the people that work on coal, and it's bad for all the byproducts that happen. And we're doing that transition. And that is another thing that just gives me heart to know we know what to do and we can do it, even though it never feels like that. It's easy to be mire in the we're not doing enough, and we're not, but just take some heart in the fact that we know we can make a lot of change fast if we want to in a decade. And the last thing I want to stress on what the biggest opportunity we have is the people in this room, the people in this county. We might be the luckiest people on the planet. We're not gonna. We have safe water relatively. We have safe air, clean air relatively compared to the rest of the world, and we are not going to feel climate change. This 1 and 2 and 3 degree, even if it's the worst projection in our lifetime, we're going to be just fine because we're going to be air conditioning our way through this thing, and we won't even feel it. And that to me is kind of a weird fact, but to me it says, well, what do we do about it? We're in the happy land, and we're going to be okay. And we might be so happy that a lot of people might want to join us here. And I get it. I'm not from here. I'm from Green Bay. I fell in love with this place probably the way that a lot of people did. So I moved here because I love it. And that's why a lot of us moved here. And that's why all the visitors, and we're fortunate that you guys see the beauty of it too. And that to me is the big opportunity, that this natural beauty, this water, like this is always going to be the perfect draw. And we're really lucky because the water keeps us relatively cool. And so we're safe because of geography and all these, but it's these natural resources and it's these human resources that make us know that we are super lucky and super well endowed. And, I think of Jesus on the hilltop. And I think of his statement, like, yes, we're on the top and we're super lucky. And it's like, and we know our strength and we know what happened. But Jesus decides to say very different things and use his leadership in a different way. And it's from his heart. And he says, hey, let's be the peacemakers. Let's use our position of strength. That's our leadership. That's this soft ability that we have because we're in the really good spot. We're in the lucky, blessed spot. So we know the problem. We know lots of these solutions. What are we going to do about it? I feel very lucky to work in this world of climate action and climate education. I'll give you a couple ideas on some things that we do. If you're interested in it, please let me know to join our climate action, but also new ideas on how to do education better, how to get the word out to you and all your best buddies that are doing totally other things. How do we connect better with the community? Quick background. Big thank you to the UU. The reason Climate Change Coalition exists, the nonprofit that I get to work for, is really because Mary and Dick Smythe are our founders, and they're traveling right now, so they couldn't be here. But my understanding of the moment is, Dick has given kind of a series of speeches and discussions, and he's been telling us it's our time on climate forever. And some 11 years ago, he said, "Hey, we got to do something about this." And and the leaders of the church, and surely lots of people in this room, were like, "Yeah, we should do something about it. Why don't you go start a nonprofit and work on it?" And I'm really grateful you said that. And so, we're a nonprofit. We can be laser focused. That's our mission. And so our history over the last 11 years has been doing a lot of education. And in the last 3 and 4 years, we really said, let's take action. Let's do what we can. One of my favorite phrases is, what's the adjacent possible? What's the thing you can do right now practically that's right next to you that you can do right now? And so a couple of years ago, everybody said, "Hey, let's plant trees. Hey, let's work on a couple other physical initiatives that really can have an impact, that can really connect with people." And so my predecessors, Roy Thilley and others, said, "Hey, there's a bunch of us planting trees out there and helping out." We got started as volunteers with the Nature Conservancy, but we hop in and volunteer at a whole bunch of our partner groups. Let's give it a name, give it a logo that's bigger than all of us, and let's just try and plant as many trees as possible, get as many trees out there and get as many people involved as possible. And so from that humble beginning of 7,000 trees, we said, hey, let's make it a goal to do 10,000 trees a year and keep making them a little bit bigger and a little bit better, and let's keep growing it. And so, happy to report this is our fourth full year, and we've got 12,000 trees in the ground this year, and we have one more planting coming up that I'll mention. And the big idea was, let's call it a new thing, give it a logo, and it's not anybody's. Like, I'll help coordinate it, but it's really us working with everybody in the county. That's, of course, the major conservation groups. A lot of people in this room know and are part of the Land Trust and Crossroads and Ridges and the Nature Conservancy, Forest Recovery Project. So all these, but it's also the churches, and it's the UU. So many people in here have been on tree planting adventures and with me, and that's been awesome. And so we got to keep doing that. But we also got to keep connecting with all the other municipalities and any friends group and anyone else that wants to plant trees. What we do for our big plant, really two things. One, we just bring in a lot of trees and sell them at cost. So just make it really easy for everybody to get a little $3 tree, because the more you plant one tree, the more you're a great steward of that tree. So, buy our trees and go plant them. We're just the middle person, because there's no native nursery that really wants to sell one tree or a tray of trees like that. And so we're, of course, happy to do that. The other part, along with just getting trees out there and selling them at cost, is providing free trees to anybody that's out there that has an educational mission to them. And that's you guys, and that's everybody that you can think of at a school and has any education aspect. And so every time we're bringing in 12,000 or so trees, us and the Land Trust and the Nature Conservancy, we're all buying a lot of trees in order to let everybody else for free join these public plantings, so we can all plant them together. Pretty big variety of trees, but the workhorse of our native local trees that kind of meet our needs of, you can source them locally, they're native, they're relatively low cost, they're relatively easy to plant, and they don't get eaten by deer, is these four workhorses: white pine, red pine, white spruce, and balsam fir. And two of those varieties, white pine and balsam fir, are on the way out the door. So feel free to take one of these trees with you on the way out. And so, as mentioned, there's kind of a lot of different ways we get the trees out there. And this is a kind of a call to action. Anybody that has a different way to distribute trees and get trees out there, please let me know. But our current way to distribute trees is almost everybody on this list, they're basically buying trees, sitting somewhere and giving them away. And they're marketing to their people and connecting in their ways at their grocery store, in person at the checkout, or they're at a green tier event, giving trees at the out at the end of the village hall. A quick example, so we do community plants. We always do a couple of, usually 5 or 6 community plants every single year. And one example, usually they're at conservation sites at Crossroads and the Ridges and Nature Conservancy, but we're really open-minded on what can have an impact. So we said, so everybody probably knows that affordable housing that came up kind of on the way into Sister Bay next to the medical center. And we said, oh, it looks really ugly because it's new development, and it's like, and we drive by that every single day. How about we work with the residents in the apartment complex, the new one to the north and the old one to the south, and say, hey, do you want to help us plant trees? We'll give the trees, and we'll help you and bring our volunteer team and plant them. And we planted a couple hundred trees there, you know, and hopefully we get to drive by there 5 and 10 years and be like, oh, look at our trees that we planted. And that's a big point of all these free public plantings. It's like you remember the moment because it's kind of a special place every time, and it's a different place. But you also get reminded of it every time to be like, hey, I did a little bit of good, and I remember having a good laugh and a good moment with other people. So tree planting, it's awesome and it's fun. Do it for any reason. The other thing I want to mention briefly as well is composting. Gwen, comment? Hey, good. So the other thing I want to mention is composting. And let's see, show of hands, who's composting at home? That is an amazing amount of composters. You guys are great. I've never seen a room with that much. So best way to compost is at home, but there's a lot of other ways too. Sometimes you live in an apartment complex or a condo and it's not very easy. So us as a nonprofit, we're like, I don't know, I think we have a solution. And we met these awesome farmers at Mighty Wind Farm up north. And they, you know, they have chickens and eggs and a whole bunch of veggies. And they're like, stop trying to convince your municipality to do it. Just do it smaller. Do it smaller and do it more democratic and do it everywhere. So we've slowly been able to kind of spread the word and say, hey, what other areas, hey, would you open up your backyard or your little farm or some, and 2 municipalities, Egg Harbor and the city of Sturgeon Bay. So it's like, let's just do it a lot more, make it really easy. So everybody on their weekly errands, if they just got a 5-gallon bucket that they collected over a week, they can just dump their scraps on our big pile rather than their pile if they can't. Couple examples. You can do this anyway. You know, all you guys that compost, you can compost kind of a little in a little tumbler, or you can do it medium or bigger. But the way we do it at some of these compost sites is they're all a little bit different. At Wasita, there's a couple of buckets, and every day the gardener, Dave, just brings them to the big farm compost pile. This is at my place. It's just a pile. So it's really boring and it's really slow. But this is the really lazy way that like just put it in a pile. But just stop throwing all that food scrap in the trash. It's just going to the landfill down in Appleton area. Okay, and another thing we're trying to do a lot more of, love any help that you guys can offer, is let's compost at every single event. How many potlucks do we have? How many festivals do we have? How many big dinners do we have at the Land Trust and all of our partners? Like every single one of those, there's either a little or a lot of food scrap. So let's work on basically getting a bucket or a bin or a bunch of buckets at every single one of these sites. And big credit to Mary. I wish Mary was here right now because I love telling the story in front of her. So Mary, and I don't know if anybody knows Mitch. Mary and Mitch, we were volunteering at the Peninsula, the 100-mile fall challenge about a year ago at this time. And we were giving all these bananas and oranges away to all the riders. And it's really fun and it's a beautiful day and all that stuff. And we got to the end of the event and we're like, man, we should have been composting here. Okay. And it was amazing. Mary and Mitch look down into the trash and they just see a bunch of nasty banana peels and orange peels all intermixed with cups. So it was relatively clean. There's a lot of dirtier events, but they're like, well, this is not going to stand. And if you know Mitch, Mitch is not scared of dirt as a former surgeon. And so these two just dove right into every single one of those trash bins, took all the little half bananas, which at this point were really slimy, and they peeled off all the little stickers, and they said, this is the beginning. And so this is what the beginning of us having the dumb, simple idea. We should compost everywhere. It's so easy to leave a bucket somewhere, put the right signage on, and be like, hey, just stop throwing it in the landfill. Throw it in my little pile. Okay, so those are our two kind of major community climate actions that we put a lot of focus on now, but we're open to others. And that's just dependent upon who we have, who's passionate about something, what our bandwidth is. The big climate education push that we've had of late is solar. And a lot of people in this room kind of are familiar with that. So we have a lot of solar education sessions. Our first push was, hey, let's just get every individual out there that's interested to know who the contractors are, know how easy it is to go get a free estimate. And so we have some resources on our website. But the biggest push this year is we want to push hard to change our grid. Because we're in Wisconsin, because we're like unusually bad for coal and natural gas, we got to convince we have no power, no control other than just being a bunch of little voices. But we have a bunch of really smart people in the room that are well connected. And so we're fortunate that Roy Philly was one of our founders at the Climate Change Coalition. And a couple of people in the room might know Jim Stawicki. Sturgeon Bay Utility is a really cool, really small utility that's down in Sturgeon Bay, of course. So they're not in our WPS land where it'll be a lot harder. But we've been working real hard with them to see if there's enough interest in Sturgeon Bay. If we can present that interest of 30 businesses and 30 individuals, we might be able to convince him that there's an interest that he didn't think was there to eventually put a bigger community solar grid down in Sturgeon Bay area. So to close in towards the end here, how can we get involved? How can we be part of this climate solution? We have this awareness, we have this capacity, we have this ability. Leave you with a couple of thoughts. One, obviously I'm here as outreach. I'd love to connect with you. I'll be here afterwards to talk more. Get on our contact list, join us at our tree planting, get involved with composting, maybe be a compost site. I don't know if you saw on that map, but we don't have a site really close to here. So if you know anyone within a 3-mile radius of here, that's maybe in a little bit more rustic area, the closest site is probably my house, Boreal Preserve, about like 5 miles away. So it's like close enough, but what we found is everybody needs it really close to be able to find a spot to dump their compost. So if you know of any spot that could be a compost site, please let me know. And then of course, let us know if you have any suggestions for us to focus on for education, climate related education. That could be movie screenings or more social things like potlucks. We're looking for new ideas and new ways to connect. And then way more specifically and way more near term, like to invite you, if you're interested in any one of these kind of actions, love for you to come join us this Thursday. I was talking about community solar. We'll be presenting. This is really for people in the Sturgeon Bay area that have kind of a voice that can communicate to their co-op. But we're going to have a community solar education event down there in the new building down in Sturgeon Bay. We are a tree and plant sale. So we don't do as many trees in the fall, but we're trying a new pilot program in which we're trying to get more oaks and maples, more diverse, deciduous hardwood trees that we don't have as much. So if anybody's interested in getting a couple of kind of larger bur oaks or larger maples or a couple of plants, we have a plant sale going on. The information's on our website. We're not making any money. We're just bringing them up and selling them at cost. Green Tier Summit, the Nelsons have been crucial in kind of getting Green Tier, a Wisconsin DNR environmental and sustainability program started in Ephraim. And we try to bring all the little Green Tier committees in the county together. So in November, that's a good way to network with environmental folks, in which they'll be from the 8 different Green Tier sites throughout the county. We all get together and just share notes. Hey, what's working in your area? What are you working on? Oh, that's a good contact. And then we'd love to invite you. We have seasonal potlucks. And so this is a cool way where we're just bringing back kind of old school. We kind of got out of this role in COVID where we didn't hang out and talk and socialize. So every season around the solstice or the equinox, we have a potluck. So you're cordially invited in December. And then we have some classes coming up at the clearing. So take a look at the listing that comes out in the next month or so on that. So I want to leave with a big thank you. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you all. You know, I'll be here as long as anybody wants to chat. But thank you for all you do for the community. Thanks for choosing us as a community partner. I love all the work you're doing to say, hey, we're here as a place of hope and love and worship, but we're also a place of service. And the fact that you're connected to the community, not just with your 3 community partners, but also the way that you connect to the broader world. So thanks for having me, and really awesome to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Jeff. That was great. That was great. A lot of good information and a lot of spiritual content in there too. Thank you so much. Just a reminder that we will gather in the gathering room for coffee and snacks and some leftover lunch from yesterday. Then we will ring the chime, and we'll come back here probably at about 11:15 or so for a talk back with Jeff. And that's what we'll do. Our closing hymn is number 1064 in the Blue Book, Blue Boat Home. Though below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean, still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun my sail and moon my rudder, as I fly the starry seas, waiting over the edge in wonder, casting answers into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all ye kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the light of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great wind urging me on. Great the infinite sea before me, sing the sky my sailor's song. I was born upon the fathoms, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I travel, and the earth is my blue boat home. Our closing words come from John Daniel. Among other wonders of our lives, we are alive with one another. We walk here in the light of the unlikely world that isn't ours for long. May we spend generously the time we are given. May we enact our responsibilities as thoroughly as we enjoy our pleasures. May we see with clarity. May we seek a vision that serves all beings. May we honor the mystery surpassing our sight. And may we hold in our hands the gift of good work and bear it forth whole. As we were borne forth by a power we praise to this one earth, this homeland of all we love.
Our world today, you see the green lights. I know that it's not easy to think we will survive. It seems that we're lost it with no clear way out. If we were together, we'll swim through the drought. Disasters and fires we can't face alone. Remember that this is our home. When the storms of life drown you out, where your faith is low and you're full of doubts, see the children play, 'cause there is hope enough. When the winds of change will burn you, feel the disasters in your life won't give. Remember that there is hope enough. Look out and see every person for themselves. They say we're alone on a sick, dying hill. Trashing out problems like plastic don't kill. But every living creature calls this place home. Remember that you're not alone. When the storms of life drown you out and your faith is low and you're full of doubt, see the children play, 'cause there is hope enough. When the winds of change will burn your fields and disasters in your life won't heal, remember that there is hope enough. Trashing our problems like plastic don't kill, but every living creature calls this place home. Remember that you're not alone. When your faith is low and you're full of doubt, see the children play, 'cause there is hope enough. When the winds of change will burn you, the worries that still your life won't give. There is hope enough. The storms of life drown you out, and your faith is low and you're full of doubt. See children play, 'cause there is hope enough. Change will burn you through the disasters in your life won't give. There is hope enough.